advocates that are, oh, thank you. So to get to know one another as advocates who are going to be there supporting one another in this advocacy on the day on the Hill, and also when we're talking to our representatives, it's also good to just lead with our humanity and introduce ourselves. So we're going to start with some intros, get to know people on the call. It looks like we have about 20-ish people on the call. So I think we have time for everyone to come off camera or come off mute at least. And I would say try to keep it brief, but also be open. And we want to get to know everyone. So share your name, where you're calling in from, if you want to share your profession or just your lived experience and expertise that you bring to the space. What brings you here tonight? Why did you decide to log in on an evening call? And what's your favorite wintertime activity? So I'll go first. My name's Giselle Bruskowitz. I'm calling in from Iowa City. I serve on the steering committee of the Iowa Food System Coalition and also the infrastructure priority group for the coalition. And I work for Iowa Valley RC&D. We're a local food nonprofit based in Amana. What brings me here tonight? I'm really excited for continuing policy advocacy. We got a piece of legislation passed last session, and I want to keep that momentum and keep fighting for the changes that we deserve to see in our food system through the policy lens. And my favorite wintertime activity, I just took a walk through the woods in the snow, and I'm going to say that that's my favorite. It was really lovely. Tommy.
Sorry, trying to come off mute. Thanks, Giselle, for opening this up. We'll just keep popcorning around. My name's Tommy Hexter. I'm calling in from Grinnell, Iowa. I see some other Grinnell folks out here tonight. Proud to see it. I am the executive director of Grinnell Farm to Table, which is a little local food hub, and I'm also the policy director for Iowa Farmers Union. What brings me here tonight is I believe if we're going to fix this democracy we're in, it's going to take some real people going to the state house and getting involved, and not just, the lobbyists that we hear about controlling politics today. So I believe in democracy. I'm a crazy person, so my favorite wintertime activity is I really like going to put my body in cold bodies of water and then
Oh, goodness.
it's a good thing. The cold plunge sauna combo makes me feel alive. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Natalie with the baby.
That's really smart because the baby is on a limited time frame. So for everybody to get to see him. My name is Natalie. I am calling in from Des Moines. I work with Global Greens in Lutheran Services in Iowa. We are a business incubator and land access program that helps immigrants and refugees access land, reconnect to it, and start small farming businesses. So um, I run our farmers market. We're the number one Double Up Food Bucks farmers market in the state of Iowa. We utilize around $250,000 of Double Up Food Bucks and $250,000 of SNAP this year. So I am here to advocate for Double Up Food Bucks and some of these amazing policies that these guys have laid out that are going to help farmers in our state. And I am going to popcorn to Teresa.
Teresa, are you able to unmute? I think you're muted, Teresa.
There we go.
Great.
Double tap. There we got it unmuted. So I'm Teresa Kuhn. My husband, Roger Van Donsler, and I run Prairie Produce, which is a produce operation in Grinnell, Iowa. We started with sweet corn, added greenhouses, and grow tomatoes and a wide variety of fruits and vegetables throughout the season. And I also like to can and freeze dry. Out of order, my favorite wintertime activity is doing a lot of canning because it warms up the kitchen and I get to process a lot of the produce I froze throughout the season when I was too darn busy to process it then. Why we're here tonight, I'm more interested in just knowing what's going on in the state and as a local small grower to find out what we can contribute and influence policy. I'm a farmer physician. Roger's a farmer. And somehow he got me hooked on this, and I retired from doctoring to be a full-time farmer. So that's, I already said canning. I'll pass it on to whomever is next. I can't see the rest of the people on my cell phone. Sorry.
I can help with that. Let's go. I'm gonna go from the top of my screen and then we can keep popcorning. Ariel Jimenez, are you able to come off mute?
Yes,
Thank you.
I am Ariel. I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I'm an advocate with Save the Children Action Network, and so I came to this meeting.
Awesome. Good to have you here. Let's go, Luke.
Hi everyone, Luke Elzinga. I work at a food pantry network in Des Moines. That's where I live. Also serve on the board of the Iowa Hunger Coalition. Do a lot of anti-hunger advocacy work. And my favorite wintertime activity, I think, is being cozy inside and drinking nice warm beverages.
A good one. I'm just gonna popcorn for everyone because I'm gonna lose track of who's gone or not. So I'm just gonna go in order of my screen. Ilsa.
Hello, Ilse DeWald, she, her pronouns. I work for Johnson County as a local food and farm manager, calling in from Iowa, my office in Iowa City, Iowa. I also serve on the Iowa Food System Coalition Steering Committee and the Local Food Policy Network team, as well as the Partnership and Engagement Committee. And I am really excited to hear from everyone about their excitement with working on policy and to carry forward like local grassroots ideas for local food and farm policy to the state level. And my favorite wintertime activity is probably eating soup, making and eating soup.
Excellent. I have a soup on the stove right now. Our beloved Chris Schwartz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Schwartz. I am the Executive Director of the Iowa Food System Coalition. I live in Waterloo, where I also serve as a Blackhawk County supervisor. And I'm excited because, as Giselle said, we've got the momentum. And as Tommy said, it takes people power in this moment. And so I come from a background of community organizing for the last 20 years. And my favorite wintertime activity is making music because it's too cold to be out working in my garden. And so, yeah, I like making music in the winter.
Awesome. Mallory.
Hi, I'm Mallory DeVries. I am from Charles City, Iowa. I'm a communications specialist. I work with Healthy Harvest of North Iowa and the Iowa Food System Coalition. I also work with quite a few farmers in North Iowa, doing communications, marketing, things like that. I think someone stole my favorite wintertime activity. That's definitely eating soup.
Classic. Can't go wrong there. Nancy Eastman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Eastman. I am calling from Riceville, Iowa. I'm the food service director at the Riceville Schools, and we were the 2024 Golden Root Award winner for Iowa. What brings us here tonight? Well, me here tonight is that I want to see more local foods in schools. I want for the state and for federal funding to help support schools to get local farmers items in schools. And my favorite winter activity is just staying warm.
An important one. Nancy, you're getting a lot of love in the reactions in the chat box. So thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Jada.
Yes, hi, I'm Jada. I am calling from Afton, Iowa. I work with the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, which offers land access to farmers, and I also am with the Union County Food Coalition, and I am also a soil and water commissioner there too. I'm here tonight to just like continuing education. I'm pretty new, I guess, in trying to advocate more and more And then my favorite winter activity has got to be sledding, though I don't know if that's going to happen this year.
Fingers crossed, we'll get more snow. Eva, wherever you're calling in from, it looks like a beautiful campus.
I wish, not really, because I'm a Hawkeye and this is Iowa State behind me. But I'm Eva Donnelly and I am calling in from Iowa City, and I actually work at Iowa State University Extension and Outreach as a healthy food access specialist. And so I primarily work with the food pantries and food banks. And so after just kind of being in that sphere and hearing a lot of the stories that I've heard, it's just gotten me more interested in the policy side and advocating for the people that I engage with. And I just don't know how to do that. Um, my favorite winter activity is trying to stay outside as much as possible, whatever that may be, and baking.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Sarah Martin.
Hello, so my name is Sarah Martin. I am calling from Des Moines. I am currently kind of foremost a Master's of Social Work student. I'm also interning at United Way. In the past, I've worked with local food and policy was kind of my big undergrad work. So that's why I'm here tonight to kind of get reconnected to that work I did a couple years ago before I started my master's and learn more about the policy space. My favorite wintertime activity is walking my dogs, even if it's cold and snowy.
Getting outside. That's great. Good to see you, Sarah. Tiffany Welsh.
Hi, my name's Tiffany Welch. I am calling in from Clive, suburban Des Moines. I am the state volunteer leader with Save the Children Action Network and helping kids access healthy food is one of our things that we focus on. I also volunteer at my church to help people access food through various means. And my favorite winter activity is complaining about the weather. That's my year-round activity, actually.
I'm sure you're in good company here. Let's go to Jan.
I'm Jan McInnes and I'm in Marshalltown. And I'm a recently retired teacher and I am trying to figure out how to become a more effective advocate with our legislature. I recall my middle schoolers asking when they would ever use these skills of reading and writing. And I said, the most important thing you can do with your reading and writing is be effective participants in your government. So I would like to learn how to do that. And then as far as my favorite wintertime activity, probably walking. We have paths on our property and I walk those. And so that is it.
Awesome. Jenny, did you go? No, Natalie went from LSI Global Greens. Okay, Jenny.
Good evening. My name's Jenny Irwin. I live in Urbandale. I work with the Global Greens team, managing horticulture acres. Obviously living in Des Moines, I say yes to a lot of advocacy days on the Hill. So I'm not confused about what it is we're doing, except that like any updates for 2025, specific things that we're focused on. That's what I'm here for tonight, is to see what our strategy is, swimming upstream, as it were. I'm a farmer. When I'm not in meetings, I grow vegetables. I like to run and walk in the winter a lot. I'll run until it's too treacherous and then I just put on snowshoes or something. But yeah, I don't overheat so much. It's nice. It's quiet. It's really peaceful. So I run all winter.
Good for you. That's inspiring. Luis DeWard. Sorry if I butcher anyone's name. There you are.
Yeah, my name is Lois DeWard, and I'm calling from West Des Moines, Iowa. I am retired, and I am interested in learning more how to advocate successfully for policies that allow people to have access to healthy food regardless of where they live. And I have many favorite wintertime activities, but I think one of my most favorite ones is doing puzzles.
Nice. Gil.
I'm Gil Gillespie. I'm calling in from Atlantic, Iowa. I'm a sociologist who is nominally out to pasture. In my previous life, I worked in ag and food system work and other things that are related to the environment. I'm currently an active volunteer with a number of things, including the Cass County Local Food Policy Council. And I'm on the farm and food business priority team for the coalition. I'm also an active volunteer with the North American Food Systems Network. My favorite activity in the wintertime is working and puttering around in my heated workshop. And I'm excited about doing policy work because I think we need to do something to change the trajectory of success of the previous kinds of policies that have led us to our current predicament. Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. Wendy Johnson.
Hi, everybody. Wendy Johnson. I'm calling in from Charles City, Iowa. I'm a farmer, and what brings me here tonight is, excuse me, I work in federal policy, and I think I need to bring myself down to the Iowa level and get busy in advocating for local foods at the state level. So I'm excited that you offer this. And my favorite wintertime activity is a lot of self-care. I get to rest a little bit.
Very important for the farmers, especially. Jonathan.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Lawrence. I'm calling from Des Moines, but I'm based in Fairfield. My profession is value chain coordinator. So I work a lot in the Southeast Iowa area, combating food insecurity, working with farmers, and yeah, what brings me here tonight is just trying to be more informed. Last year was my first time doing this, and I had a lot of fun doing it, but also did not know really what I was doing, and just kind of threw myself into this whole thing. So just want to be a little bit more prepared. And favorite wintertime activity would be hibernating. I like to just chill, and drink hot chocolate and play video games. So yeah.
Nice. Good to see you, Cynthia.
Sorry it took me so long to get off mute, but Cynthia Farmer. Yes, my last name is Farmer. I married a farmer, but I grew up on a farm too, so it's kind of a fun little tale to tell. I'm calling in from Nevada. I originally grew up in Northeast Iowa, but now I live and work just east of Ames here in Nevada. I work at the Center for Rural Affairs. I am a senior policy associate here and do our Iowa state policy efforts focused on ag and conservation, more recently also including local food work and rural grocery things. So that's actually what brings me here tonight. Last year, we helped spearhead the rural grocery bill, local food bill that went through with Representative Losi and Representative Ingalls. So I'm here to provide an update tonight, but also I enjoy learning from others in the space too. My favorite winter activity is staying inside as well. I enjoy making like homemade hot chocolate, so always making sure that you're putting some real milk in there. I love that. And doing puzzles, which I think was already mentioned as well. So those are a couple of my favorite things.
Awesome. We've got 3 more people, and I apologize to the organizers because I went way over our time here, but it's really good to hear from everyone. Mark.
Hi, yeah, my name is Mark Beckwith. I'm with Lutheran Services in Iowa Global Greens program, so I work with Natalie and Jenny. I'm here in Des Moines. I'm here tonight to kind of echo what Jenny said. Make sure that we're all talking from the same playbook when we're up on the Hill on the 23rd, particularly around the Double Up Food Bucks program, which is essential to Global Greens Farmers Market and CSA activity, to be perfectly honest. My favorite wintertime activity, I think Ava took mine. Just like anything outside. I like the cold. I like the stark snow. I like the way the air feels in my lungs when it's zero. And baking, which is the other end of that spectrum. So
Awesome. Emily Renshaw. Might be multitasking at PFI right now.
Yeah, Emily just dropped a long intro in the chat too, so we can
Oh,
read.
gotcha. It's in the chat box. Awesome. Thanks, Emily. Andrea Love, last but not least.
Want me to see some?
Hello.
Oh, probably.
Hello.
What the hell?
I am in Des Moines. Sorry, Andrea Love. I'm a personal chef here in Des Moines. I belong to Global Green, so I got the email about this from Mark. And I also like to connect with local producers to use in my food. Here to dust off some of my advocacy skills. And my favorite wintertime activity is when my husband takes my kids skiing, so I get the house to myself.
Real fun activity there.
That's like a real mom.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for sharing. If I missed anyone, please just drop it in the chat box. And again, thank you for letting me go 10 minutes over. But I feel like it's so valuable for us to get to know one another, even just on this level, so that when we do meet in person, we feel this sense of community and connection. And we at least know a favorite winter activity that everybody likes. So I will hand it over to the policy team.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Giselle, and thank you to everyone for introducing themselves. It's not every day you get to talk to people who are interested in food systems around the state, so it's really cool to be connected to this community. Um, we're gonna go ahead and dive in. We'll do a quick introduction of our local food policy team who's organizing these training sessions. So the team consists of myself, and then Luke, Ilsa, and Cynthia, if you want to say a quick hello. And Luke and I will largely be leading this training tonight, and we'll try and hit on some of those nuts and bolts of what we do, what we mean when we're talking about advocacy.
I go in the other room.
So I'll go ahead and get us started off. So let's start at the beginning. I think most of us remember this image from Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. I'm only a bill. I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. And I remember when I was growing up thinking, oh, this is how democracy works. A legislator will bring a bill, people will go talk about it, and it'll happen. And I think a lot of people today feel like disenamored with politics. That's not how it works anymore. Um, but I think we need to start from a common place and understanding that we must believe that democracy can work like this if it's going to work for us. So that's kind of the ground we want to start on, is that we have the power to go to the state house, speak with our representatives and our senators to make our priorities heard, and make meaningful policy change in the state house. So yeah, we'll just start from right there, and I'll pass it over to Luke to talk a little bit about what the process looks like in the Iowa State Legislature.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. Again, my name is Luke Elzinga. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager at the DMARC Food Pantry Network in Des Moines. I've been doing policy and advocacy work full-time for 2 years, but prior have had experience for about 6 or 7 years. I just wanted to start by sharing kind of the legislative timetable for Iowa's legislative session. Next Monday, our 2025 Iowa legislative session starts. It's the 91st General Assembly. The way our state legislature is elected is kind of a General Assembly every 2 years. So this is our 91st for the state. And first, just wanted to quick go through some kind of key dates, and I will explain more of what funnels are in a minute here. Um, but just as some dates to keep in mind, um, Friday, February 14th is the last day for legislators to submit draft language to the Legislative Services Agency. So if you talk with a legislator and have a great idea, that Friday is the last day for them to submit the bill language. Now, I will say there's a big backlog at LSA, and even if they get that bill submitted, it may not be ready in time to be introduced before the first funnel. Now, what the first funnel is it's basically a self-imposed deadline by the legislature to narrow the number of bills that are still active. At the start of session, we'll probably have over 1,000 bills introduced this legislative session. And obviously, the legislature kind of has to narrow focus on which ones have movement, which ones, quote unquote, stay alive through the process. And this first funnel is kind of the first winnowing of those bills. So a bill has to have advanced past a certain point by that time. It has to have advanced out of a committee to survive the first funnel. That week is really busy. There's a lot of bills and a lot of subcommittee meetings of people trying to get these bills kind of past that point. So if you hear people talking about first funnel, second funnel, these are really self-imposed deadlines by the legislature, and it's just an indication that we need legislation to have passed a certain point in order for it to keep moving through the process. So it's really important that bills get a committee vote before those deadlines. This last one, I still don't know how to pronounce it. It's Latin, sine die. I've heard it multiple ways. It basically just means that's the day the legislators stop getting paid. And typically that means they want to wrap up work by then. Doesn't always happen. They don't always end the session in time, but that's when the legislators stop getting paid. So it's a good incentive for them to wrap things up. And typically that's when we see the session wrap up. Tommy, you can go to the next slide. A little bit about the legislative process. So thinking back to that Schoolhouse Rock video, this is the legislative process for the state of Iowa. And there is some handouts that we'll follow up with that kind of walk through this more. But that first step is drafting a bill. Go to a legislator with an idea, share with them, and they can, craft this legislation, submit it to be drafted. We're kind of already past that point. Honestly, we've been talking with legislators to make sure we're already getting these bills that we care about introduced to make sure we have time to meet those deadlines. Next comes introduction of legislation. Once that bill has gone through the drafting process with the Nonpartisan Legislative Services Agency, or LSA, it will be introduced. And we don't always know when that's going to happen. Next week, right out the bat, there will be some bills that are immediately introduced. And once those get introduced in, say, the House, if I'm working with a representative to introduce a bill in the House, that bill then goes and is assigned to a committee. Leadership gets to kind of choose where that goes. And most of the time for the bills we'll be working on, that's the Ag Committee or maybe HHS with some programs. And then that committee chair assigns it to a subcommittee. A subcommittee is made up of 3 people, 2 members from the majority party and 1 member from the minority party. And so this group of 3 people is really important because they can make or break that bill. So ideally, we want to have our allies, legislators who agree with us on these issues, ideally the ones who introduced the bill, serve on that subcommittee so they can guide it through that process. Another thing about subcommittee meetings, it is the one time that they open up public comment on that legislation. There will be a subcommittee meeting notice. They'll say, hey, the subcommittee for this bill is going to be tomorrow in this room. A lot of the time, you don't have a lot of advance notice. That's the one time where the public can show up. And at that subcommittee meeting, they'll ask for public input and go around the room. And that's when typically have about 2 minutes to say, hey, here's my name, and this is why I care about this bill and it needs to pass. Or maybe this is why this bill's a terrible idea and we don't want it to pass. Then at that subcommittee meeting, they will take a vote, uh, whether that will advance to the full committee. If that passes out of subcommittee, it then goes to the full committee for a vote. At that full committee, there is no public comment. It's just discussion between members of the legislature. But during that time is a really key time to be reaching out to all the members of that committee to say, hey, this Thursday, you're going to be voting on this bill. Again, here's why we care about this and why we want this to see happen. Once it gets voted out of committee, it is eligible for floor debate. And leadership gets to choose when things go to the floor for debate. So let's say this bill passes out of subcommittee, goes to committee, goes to the floor for a vote. If it passes, the whole process starts again in the other chamber. Now, there are some times where we'll have concurrent bills, basically partner companion bills running in both chambers at the same time. Honestly, I wouldn't worry about that too much. So again, then this goes through the whole process again. Subcommittee is assigned to a committee in the other chamber, subcommittee, committee, a floor debate, and vote. If those bills have the exact same language, we're good. The bill gets enrolled and goes to the governor. If, for instance, when this bill's in the Senate and they make an amendment, so we no longer have exactly the same language between chambers, they'll go what's called a conference committee, with members from both chambers to hash out how are we going to come to an agreement on this, and then committee will vote and roll the bill, and then it goes to the governor. The governor can sign it. The governor can veto it. The governor can also pocket veto. Most of the time, the governor is going to sign it or veto it. And I know this is kind of dense, so apologies. We will be sending along some kind of more info on this timeline. Tommy, could you go to the next slide? What I kind of wanted to talk about is that each step of this process, what are some things that you can be doing to take action? So first, before session even begins, the best thing to be doing right now, if you haven't already, is to introduce yourself to your representative and senator. Honestly, the best way to do this is in person. If they are hosting some sort of in-district event, or even just doing like an open coffee hour sort of thing, just drop in, introduce yourself, talk to them, share about, who you are, and maybe invite them to visit your food pantry or farm. But just establish that connection there. You can also just reach out with an email too. That's perfectly fine. But just introduce yourself, let them know you're a constituent and what you care about. And you may want to share an idea about a bill with them too. Once we have legislation introduced, then we actually have a bill number that we can point to and start spreading awareness about it. So, reaching out to your legislator and say, hey, I just saw this bill was introduced. I noticed you're on the agriculture committee and this might come before it. And so I just want to let you know more about this bill. Or maybe they're not on the committee, but you just want to spread awareness early on so that they're aware of this. And also just, spread awareness with other advocates, This is a great time to maybe write a letter to the editor, saying, hey, this new bill's been introduced. Here's what it would do. We want to thank the bill's sponsors and would love to see Iowa move this forward, that sort of thing. Once we get to the point where they're scheduling a subcommittee has been assigned, then is a really good time to reach out to those three legislators on the subcommittee and say, here's who I am, here's why I support this or why I'm opposed to this. Please advance this bill, or please do not advance this bill, because those three people are the key decision makers at that point. You can also get ready to testify. If you are able to show up in person, sometimes these meetings don't happen with much notice. So it might be, just we find out on Wednesday there's going to be a subcommittee Thursday. So you can also be kind of preparing statements and getting ready to testify if that's something that you're willing and able to do. Like I said, it's really the one chance we have at public comment in front of the legislators. And the media is also often at those subcommittee meetings as well. So it's good to spread awareness there. Um, when it comes to the full committee meeting and debate and floor vote, that's something where you can then expand the number of people you're reaching out to. Contact the folks on that committee. And then when it comes for a full vote, that's when you're really reaching out to your representative or senator and asking for them to take a position on that. If it goes to conference, that's really when you're advocating to make sure that your priorities stay in there. And then once it's enrolled, and really prior to this, but especially once it's enrolled, making sure you're advocating with the governor's office, saying, please sign this bill, or conversely, please veto this bill. So I tried to kind of lay out how you could take action at all those different points. I know this is very dense and it's a lot all at once. We are going to do our best to guide you all through this process during the legislative session, sending updates so you know when and how to take action. Tommy, can you go to the next one? Just a couple tips on sharing your story, and we're going to dig into this more next week. But first, direct contact with elected officials. When you're reaching out to them, let them know that you are their constituent. They'll hear from a lot of people and they work for their constituents. And so they place greater emphasis on responding and hearing from people that they represent. Make it personal, let them know why you care about this and how it relates to you and your work. I would say too, please keep it civil. Um, Try to keep it as concise as possible. They get a lot of emails, so try to stick to maybe one or two paragraphs. If you want to bold the most important part of that email, I always encourage that too. Maybe it's bold, please vote no on House File, whatever, but try to keep it as concise as possible. For testifying at subcommittee meetings, I encourage people to prepare their remarks ahead of time and practice them out loud. We read a lot faster typically than we are able to speak words out loud. Sometimes they will limit those comments to 2 minutes. So having practiced and gone through and understanding whether you've got to cut off some parts of what you want to say is just good to practice. And then again, be ready. Those can happen at really short notice. So just make sure you have everything prepared, really not knowing if it could be tomorrow or 2 weeks from now. Um, Letters to the editor and op-eds, those don't have to be very long. They can be 250, 400 words, even less than 250 for some letters to the editors. So don't feel like you have to write a novel and take a lot of time editing it. Just put down some words to paper. We're also happy to help with that, and submit those to your local paper. Legislators pay attention to what is in their local newspapers. And finally, just sharing on social media. And I would just say these same kind of tips, keep it civil, keep it concise, make it personal, and really underscore what the impact is going to be. So I am going to stop there.
Awesome, Luke. Thank you for that run through. That was super helpful explainer. If there's any more questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to try and save a few minutes for questions. We're also going to do a blitz of what the Iowa Food System Coalition priorities are for this year real quick. We're not going to be able to dive fully into all of them in the next 7 or 8 minutes, but we'll at least give an introduction and then people can do their own research after. So just so people know what we're headed into, this is pictures from last year's Day on the Hill. Um, and yeah, so it was our first ever one, so this will be our second one. Really excited to have bigger numbers there and keep growing our impact. Last year, as Giselle mentioned, we did have our first legislative win, which was actually winning um, the start of the Choose Iowa Food Purchasing Pilot Project, which provides $300,000 in matching funds to food banks, schools, and emergency feeding organizations to purchase locally grown food from Choose Iowa producers. So to have a win like that in the first year shows there's a lot of momentum behind this local food work, especially behind the Choose Iowa program. So we have momentum that we're building on. And this year we've worked with all of the priority teams and many different farmers and stakeholders to build our priorities out again. And we've come up with this overarching message, which this is a beautiful graphic, I think, um, that food farmers deserve a bigger slice of the pie. And who doesn't like pie, first of all? And the budget of the Iowa state legislature is often compared to a pie because there's, there's only so much in the budget, and what they choose to allocate money to determines, kind of what gets prioritized in the state. And so what we are hoping to make the point of with the legislature this year is that the IDOL's budget, the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship's budget, is quite large. And the Choose Iowa program, which is the local food part of IDOLS, is pretty small. And so we're hoping to continue growing that. We aren't saying that we want to take any money away from, other kinds of farming or the other IDOLS programs, but that food farms are doing so much for the state, and that this is an area that we can prioritize in the state of Iowa. So that's the overarching message, and it goes in with each of our priorities, which are real quick, the overview to fund and make permanent the Choose Iowa purchasing program, which started last year, to increase funding for the Choose Iowa Value Added Grant Program, to increase the Rural Innovation Grant Program investment in rural grocery stores, shared use kitchens, and fruit and vegetable processing, and to provide state investment in the Double Up Food Bucks program. So that's the quick overview. These are also all able to be found on the Iowa Food System Coalition website with more information about each of them. So I urge you to go and check out the website after this call if you're particularly interested in one of them. I will also say that all of these had bills related to them last year. So if you go on the Iowa legislative website, you can view more information about what progress was made with those bills last year. There's news articles about these things, but these are the four that we've chosen because we think they have legs. There's momentum behind them, and they will impact a lot of small food producers and food access efforts. So we'll do a quick deep dive into each of the four of these, but we're not going to go super in depth because I want to leave time for questions and to take a group picture with everybody here tonight. So the first one is the Choose Iowa Purchasing Program. Luke, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Sorry, I was finishing a message in the chat. As Giselle and Tommy mentioned, this was our win last year, getting this pilot program passed. It provided $300,000 in matching funds to food banks, schools, and emergency feeding organizations to purchase local food. And the local definition is actually tied to Choose Iowa. So folks need to be purchasing from a Choose Iowa vendor, and it's a number of products. So it's fruits and vegetables, and I think nuts fall. Now I need to double check that. Meat, dairy, eggs, and honey. I don't know if I'm missing anything. So we would love to see this program made permanent and increase the amount of investment. $300,000 is not a ton of money when it comes to supporting these purchases. So we would love to see that grow. And if we can get this a permanent program that growers know is going to be there and we can plan contracts and purchasing agreements, we think that this can really help grow local markets. So we recommend making the pilot program permanent and increasing funding for the purchasing program.
Okay, the next one is also Choose Iowa related. Choose Iowa kind of has the two sides. They do the purchasing program, and they also have this value added grant program where producers can be financially supported through matching grants to support their value added agricultural products and on-farm investments, infrastructure, all these sorts of things to help their business grow. We want to see this grant program continue to grow because it's been way over applied for the last several years. They've received more applications than they've been able to fund, and it's been doing really meaningful work for the farms who have received the grants. Um, so we recommend increasing funding for the Choose Iowa Value Added program and creating exceptions to the one-to-one match and reimbursement required by farms and processors to receive the grant. So, for instance, not requiring the one-to-one match in all cases, particularly for smaller grants, and for socially disadvantaged producers. So we'll move on to the next one. Cynthia, I'm going to call on you to talk rural grocery for a second.
Yeah, happy to share a little bit. I won't belabor how we got to this point, but the the third priority here is the rural grocery or rural innovation grant program that we want to help provide more additional funds to. We kind of have a two-prong approach here. I think I can maybe say that the center has kind of spearheaded this effort, to use that term in a way. We have collaborated with the Grocers Association, and then this year we're planning. Actually, I learned that Representative Losi actually has the bill drafted. He's received the first file of it and plans to drop that bill next week when they are there. I will put a link to that bill in the chat. Knowing that all bills have to be reintroduced now that we're going into a new General Assembly. So it'll have a new number, but it'll be what it'll look like is very similar to what the link that I just put in the chat. The focus on this is to provide grant funding to rural grocery stores and other rural local food producers to do further processing of their foods. So we're looking at supporting shared use kitchens, if there's like a community location that folks have or are able to use that have a kitchen, purchasing equipment so that they can use that space in a more efficient way and effective way, instead of everybody buying their own equipment. So that's kind of the mindset behind this. We have, if you want to take a look at the legislation that we had introduced last year, we narrowed down to make sure that grocery stores only have they're an independent store. They're in a community that is low income and low access. So it's focusing on some of those different types of communities, and then also stores that have less than 5 stores of ownership. So it can't be like a Fairway or a Hy-Vee in that scenario getting these grants. So with that, we have received like confirmation that the Grocer Association is going to support us in this effort again this year. Like I mentioned, we have a two-prong approach. So we have this legislation that Representative Losi and Representative Ingalls will be introducing, but then we're also going to be going to I think the appropriations process has been mentioned here a couple times, but looking at the Ways and Means Committee, when they put out their budgets, asking for an additional appropriation towards this Rural Innovation Grant Program. So that's kind of, we're hoping one of those directions is going to allow us some success. But we had really good conversations last year. This is maybe one of the more exciting things that I worked on, knowing that it made it through subcommittee. That was kind of what Luke was talking about. It made it through subcommittee, and then it made it out of the Economic Growth Committee in the House as well. And so since it had an appropriation attached to it, it had to go through the Appropriations Committee as well. And so that's kind of where it got stopped because everybody wants a piece of the pie. And so working through that, we had made a lot of good effort in regards to the overall topic and the conversation, and there's definitely value in that. Maybe I'll just take one more minute to explain the Rural Innovation Grant, where that came from, and why the picture is here about the governor's Empower Rural Iowa initiative. The lieutenant governor sits as the chair or co-chair of this Empower Rural Iowa task force that they have. And this last year, they focused specifically on rural food and local food processing. And so since economic development owns this budget, that's why we have this second approach here to ask for additional funding for the Rural Innovation Grant focus, because they already have the grant program set up. And so if that's how we operate, we'll go and base it off of that program that they already have. But if that route isn't successful, then we'll work through the legislation piece and ask for an appropriation that way. So I feel like I kind of was a little space, touching a little bit of everything in that, but I'm happy to chat more with folks after, or when we're there at the Capitol too, and knowing the progress, hopefully, that we've made by the 23rd. So
Thank you, Cynthia. You're like our rural grocery czar, I guess. And
the current grant recipients have not been announced, Giselle, or Mallory, sorry. I'm looking at all the different messages, but the grant recipients have not been announced yet. So we're patiently waiting for that announcement to come out, and then we can highlight those folks. The innovation grants had an overwhelming amount of applications. We do know that, and their program coordinator has shared that she's willing to come to the Capitol and speak at a subcommittee for us, just talking about facts, not advocacy, because she's not allowed to do that as a state agency. So, but yeah, we have some really good advocates on that side of things when it comes to the effort here. So I'll pass it back.
Thank you, Cynthia. And our last priority, which we've heard about from a lot of Global Greens folks, is the Double Up Food Bucks program. Luke, go ahead.
Yeah, so Double Up Food Bucks, if you're not familiar, it's a nutrition incentive program for SNAP. It is not statewide. Currently, it's operating in 36 counties at farmers markets and co-ops and some Hy-Vees and Fairways. But what it does is for folks who benefit from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, um, we know the high cost of healthy food is one of the biggest barriers that folks on SNAP face to eat healthier. And so what Double Up Food Bucks does is it essentially doubles the value of benefits for fresh fruits and vegetables. So if I'm a SNAP recipient, going to the Global Greens Farmers Market to purchase, $10 worth of fruits and vegetables, with my SNAP benefits, I can get, when I make that purchase, Double Up Food Bucks that can be used only to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. So it helps incentivize fresh fruits and vegetables and bring down the costs essentially for those families. It also helps our local growers as well. SNAP has an economic multiplier effect of 1.54. That economic multiplier effect for Double Up Food Bucks is 1.9, and actually for direct farm to consumer sales, it's 2.5. So we know that this is a really great investment for the state to be doing. Double Up Food Bucks is active in the state. Right now, it's privately funded and with a federal grant. So what we're doing is asking the state to provide some additional support so that the program can reach more folks in more communities.
Awesome. Thank you, Luke. And I think we've reached the end of our presentation here, but you guys can reach out to us anytime in between now and next session. I'm going to stop screen sharing here. And I'm sorry we did not leave much time for questions at the end of this session. We will try and make sure to leave time for questions at the beginning of next session. And also, I can't stick around after this, but maybe Luke or Ilsa, can you stick around for a couple minutes? Okay,
I
cool.
can stay on too.
Awesome. Yeah, I have to go to play practice. I'm in a community theater play, which I'm um but I think we'll go ahead and wrap today's session here, and then questions, if you have any, will be answered by Luke and Elsa and Giselle after. But would people mind coming off camera real quick or coming on camera real quick, and we can take a quick selfie with everybody. This is always my favorite part.
I love the digital selfie. Yeah.
All right.
Shot.
We got a lot of folks here.
Will you give us a count so we know when to smile?
Lean in here, honey.
Yeah.
Wow, this is great. Okay, everyone make your best selfie face. I will give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. Okay. Please join us next week. We will have more time to talk about specific talking points for each of these legislative priorities, more time to have one-on-one conversations with other advocates about crafting the story you want to tell to your legislator. And then at the end of next week, we're going to talk about logistics for our day on the Hill on the 23rd. So, like, what's actually going to happen when you get there? Where do you park? What should you wear? All those sorts of things. So, more good stuff coming next week. Thanks for coming tonight. And stick around if you have any questions or if you don't have play practice. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Luke, I just made you co-host, so I'm going to hop off.
Mallory, I saw your question about pesticide immunity. I am not the person to ask about that.